All right. Yeah, welcome everybody. Happy beginning of July. Interesting time of the academic year every year. So very excited to have everyone. Thanks for joining in preparation for the international meeting starting this weekend. I'm Mike Moore out of Indiana University, and we'll introduce the rest of our panelists here shortly. Just while we're getting started, I did want to provide a brief overview of the fellowship curriculum, and then we'll kick into today's topic, which is on how to find a job, which is, outside of getting great training, one of the most important aspects of this year. So as a part of that, the Curriculum Development and Maintenance Service is tasked with creating learning materials for you, the fellows. We've tried to generate things that will be thought-provoking, also kind of walk you through the basics and fundamentals, and also push your skill set based on not only the current literature, but also the opinions of experts who you'll interact with over the course of the year. So I'm going to briefly share my screen. Try to anyway. Let's see, here we go. All right. I just have 2 slides and I'll be out of the way here. And actually this is the only one that matters. So it's really easy to find, and Babak Gibby, who has been a longtime chair of this service and is now rotated on as the vice chair of the education division, really deserves the credit for his vision on the curriculum and was instrumental in developing it. Easy to find. You can go on the AHNS website and there's a For Trainees tab. And then there are a number of different resources there through the accredited fellowships tab. Really, if you will, the kind of core of the curriculum is what's called the curriculum. You see it listed as 2.0 or 3.0. Some of it's an active revision now, but essentially that's akin to the Cochlea curriculum, where it is an outline of different learning things that you'll need to understand, and then it kind of guides you on where to, how best to, what types of materials you need to know within each disease site. It doesn't have it all there. It just says what you need to know, and then it's up to you to go out and learn it. And that's coupled with a group of landmark articles in each disease site. The virtual tumor board sessions, this is the first one of 12 during the year. There'll be, these are always on the first Wednesday of every month, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then all past ones are also recorded. So if you happen to miss one, or if you have a topic of interest, you can go and find those there. And then also there's a fairly robust database already of surgical videos. Many of these were created by members of the society, not actually by the CDMS proper, but those are also archived on the website. And then the last resource just to mention is a case-based learning text, essential cases in head and neck oncology. You can get it just through Amazon, and it is kind of done in a, obviously, as though you're seeing an actual patient, and it provides kind of stimulating questions over the course of the case presentation on the workup and management of them, and then also is coupled with some multiple choice questions at the end of the session. So anyway, happy to interact with any of you at any time over the course of the year. Reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, I don't want to take up too much of tonight's session. We will also follow up with, you've got the introductory email and certainly our contact information. Now excited to kick it over to Babak, who really actually started these virtual tumor board sessions back when COVID hit. He had actually thought of this concept in a year kind of time leading up to it, but really put it into action then. And I was really honored to work alongside him and Arno Bewley and Jeff Liu and many others as we kind of got this thing as part of the regular fabric of the AHNS training. So Babak, take it from here. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Good evening. My name is Babak Gibby. I'm your co-moderator today. I am a head and neck surgeon at Memorial Sloan Kettering. My co-moderator is Dr. Jeffrey Liu from Temple University in Philadelphia. We have a truly excellent all-star panel. Our case presenters tonight are Dr. Leila Mahdi from Johns Hopkins University and Dr. Arvind Bedi from UMass in Worcester. Our expert panels are Dr. Benjamin Judson, Chair of Otolaryngology Section at Yale University, Dr. Arno Bewley, the Chair of Otolaryngology Department at UC Davis, and Dr. Kelly Malloy from the University of Michigan, who is the Fellowship Program Director. The format tonight is a little bit different. The cases are not patients, the cases are your colleagues. And they're gonna tell us their story of how they ended up in head and neck and how did they get their first job and what helped them in fellowship and whatnot. And then we'll ask our experts to give us some pointers that how we can help you to have an excellent fellowship program. All right, let's see. Leila, would you like to start?
Thank you, sure. I have a couple, can everyone hear me okay first? Is that cool? So thank you for the invitation. This was really cool to be a part of, especially that I think I've had a non-traditional way of everywhere to get to where I am, so a job included. And to the fellows, welcome to the family. I think this is the coolest part of residency is finally getting to fellowship. So I'm just going to share some just very brief slides. Okay. Can you see? Good?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, what matters and what I wish I knew mattered actually when I actually was a fellow. And so I am an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins. So this is a Latin saying that everything in that comes in threes is perfect. And so when asked what my first job is, I actually had three first jobs. I probably wouldn't have it any other way, for better, for worse. And so my first three jobs included some time down at MUSC, some time at Thomas Jefferson, and now at Johns Hopkins. And a lot of this had to do with the pandemic, the proximity to family. And so what I've learned—
So Leila, when did you graduate?
So I graduated in 2021. So I'm actually
So
2 years.
From 2021 to 2023, you already went to three different institutions.
I've been to three different institutions. So
I guess that breaks the record.
Yeah. So I don't know if this was like, I think most people know, or if it hasn't been known yet. So so this is why I thought when I was asked to join a panel and finding a job, it was kind of funny because I've had several jobs already. So MUSC, I went down and worked there as an attending for a couple of months during a transition period.
Okay, so let's just stop there. Where did you do your fellowship?
I did my fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania.
Perfect. And how did you hear about the MUSC job?
My spouse was at a meeting where one of the faculty members from MUSC was there and talking about some transitions and that there might have been a need for some head and neck attendings. And so I finished fellowship in July of 2021, and I had not started a job yet, and I'm still working on job contracts and interviews. And so during that interim, I went to MUSC to help.
Okay,
on a locums job, basically.
I see. Okay, so let me ask Dr. Malloy, Kelly, when it's beginning of the year, and so I'm sure some of the fellows are already nervous about the job, what would you tell them how to go about the job search? Day one.
Well, day one, I try to reassure everybody not to panic, but that it is indeed day one, it is time to think about the search. I remember being a fellow myself and being a little shocked that day one I was asked, where do you want to be? What have you been doing? And I think most of our trainees are a little bit better prepared now, a little bit better forward-thinking mindset, but I think it is important to think about it day one. And I asked all of my fellows to tell me where they are in the search, to think long and hard if they haven't gotten some concrete ideas down, or if they're thinking of several different areas of the country or several different priorities in their lives, to start writing down definitively what it is they're going to prioritize and how they want me specifically as their fellowship director and mentor to start reaching out to people, to be very intentional from the get-go.
Okay. Question for Dr. Judson and Dr. Bewley. July, you're just coming back from 4th of July and you open your inbox and there's 3 people are asking you about jobs. What do you say? Is it too early, about the right time? How would you guys both have a very robust head and neck program. How do you guys go about recruiting? What's the time limit or what's the timeline for you? We'll ask Ben and then Arno.
Yeah, I guess any time is a good time to reach out to somebody. And, I honestly, and I think, if from my perspective, I hear from people all the time, they're looking for jobs. And if, I think that there's a job opening up here, then we file that away, and it's great to hear from that person, and we'll connect with that person. And, sometimes we'll know about, there's not a job here, but I know about someone else who's looking. So I feel like it's always okay just to reach out and send an email. And I think Kelly's other point of just using your faculty to help you, and whether that's just talking through with what you're doing, you can't leave it to them to find you a job, but you want to be sharing and communicating and letting them know where you are and what you're thinking about. I think that is also great advice.
Great. Arno.
Yeah, I agree. Echo Judson Kelly's comments. I think anytime's a good time to reach out. I think that we're always looking for special connections that people have to specific places. I mean, if I know someone is from the Northern California area, Sacramento area, has a spouse that works, within Sacramento area, something like that. I mean, we get, for our last search, I think we got 30 people applied to the job. It's hard to keep track of all those individuals. And so if you can distinguish yourself in some way that tells me you're truly interested in the program, you're not just applying to, a bunch of different programs, I think that's helpful. It allows me to remember that individual. And when we are reviewing the applicants, they might stand out a little bit. So I think reaching out, specific messaging like that can be helpful. And then a comment about timeline. I think anytime's a good time to send an email, but we do generally hire along a timeline because we want to kind of have the review, the full pack of people coming out of fellowship. And so that usually is a fall kind of opening that we collect and review applications. Usually the academy is our first time to sit with people, really no threshold to meet any applicant who's interested in a position at academy, and then looking to bring applicants out in the later fall into the winter, with typically first round offers coming out sometime in December, and certainly before the beginning of the year is typically our goal.
Fantastic. Kelly, you had a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to comment, and Arno set this up perfectly in terms of the timeline. In as much as, I think we start the year with welcome, don't panic, but what are you thinking with jobs? I think the other thing to bear in mind, though, is that this is a variable process in terms of timelines, program to program. I think what Arno just described is the ideal state for most programs. That opening is coming up. You are on a timeline where it's kind of in the cadence of the fellowship. I think often academic jobs come up unexpectedly. People are ready to move, they're ready to move. And so then the timeline could be offset a bit. So I also tell fellows, not just as you don't want to panic at the beginning, don't panic through the process. Job opportunities open year round. And the fact of the matter is even if you're early in the process and meeting folks at the academy, often those offers aren't out in December. In fact, it's fairly unusual in my experience, just as a fellowship director, you're frequently still in that process well into January, February, March. Lots of folks are at the boards, or I guess what are now the oral boards, still working on contracts. So again, it's going to feel pressured. It's going to feel like what's going on? How, is this moving at the right clip? But the reality is that there is quite a bit of variability. So you can't panic there either, but continuing to rely on, folks to give you that reassurance is important.
Okay. So point number one is really, there is no right or wrong time. The sooner probably the better. And as you said, have some intention. Okay. So, and I see we have a surprise guest, Dr. Cognetti. Thank you for joining us. Is it okay if I kind of tap you for a few questions here and there, comments? Any good?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks,
perfect.
Bobby.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Sorry.
Okay, so
more...
no worries. So Leila, so how did you find MUSC and what happened next?
So I think on Kelly's comment, things are, on a variable timeline. So we didn't have the academy during fellowship. It was the height of the pandemic. There was no academy. There was no tours course. There was no micro course. There was none of this. And so there also were no jobs. It was a complete hiring freeze. NUSC was a sort of along the grapevine discussion, and Dr. Cognetti, my actual boss for the year, had delayed my start to at Jefferson to give me the time to go down there. And so it's really perfect timing, Dr. Cognetti, for you, always perfect timing. And so while we were working on contracting, I went down to NUSC. The point that I make after that basically was that these are the sort of rules that I learned. That Latin saying is everything in three is kind of perfect, and I don't think anything is actually ever perfect, but these are sort of the 3 rules of fellowship that I learned from the last 2 years. Is that the only thing that's certain is that everything is actually uncertain. And you have to be brutally honest with yourself. That's something that my mentor, Steve Kennedy, and friend taught me about free flaps, but I think it also applies to life and finding a job and what kind of job. And then you really have to decide in advance what to fail at, because despite us believing that we could do everything, it's not possible. So I think having some amount of perspective of what you may or may not want to do, or may not want to give up in your practice is important. So
okay, so you went to UMUSC as a bridge, and then you went to Jefferson with Dr. Cognetti, and then what happened that you left the best boss ever and went to Hopkins?
I did leave the best boss ever. I will say that over and over again. I had a spouse who's at Hopkins, and a job opened, and after a long time of being long distance, there was an opportunity, and so that's what happened.
Okay. Perfect. So you're gonna stop here now and let Arvind talk about himself, and then we're gonna ask more questions. So Arvind, please.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me share a screen too now. Let's see, here we go. So I'll probably end up echoing a lot of what Layla said here, just about in terms of residency, things of this nature, and my job search. So my background is similarly graduated residency from Sinai in the pandemic. It's like a New York boy, born and raised, never left New York my entire life. Then went on to a fellowship where this was the majority of our fellowships, which is everybody on Zoom at University of Cincinnati with Chad Zender and Yash Patil there. And then, found my way to UMass. I think the most relevant picture here is this woman in the top middle of the corner. That's my wife. I think that as a head and neck surgeon, as a fellow, as a reconstructive surgeon, that spouse piece and that family support, or that support in whatever way that is, whether it's mentors or family, I really think just allows, from my mentors, told me that allows you to have some longevity in a field that is really challenging. So that kind of became my kind of career path, so to speak. How
did you hear about UMass?
Yeah, so the way I heard about UMass was my wife was already an intern at Brigham and Women's and MGH and OBGYN when I started fellowship. So she matched in March of 2020 during COVID. I waited about a couple months for some of the pandemic to settle down, and then just sent emails to every single institution in the state of Massachusetts and the region, as well as actually just started Googling. My job and my position at UMass was through Googling, found out that the University of Massachusetts had a general otolaryngology position, emailed the chair and talked to him about if he was in the need of a head and neck and microvascular surgeon. Turns out that in the span of those few short months over the summer, they had 2 head and neck surgeons throughout the pandemic. Both of them left at the same time. One of them going to New York, another one going down the street to Boston. They had hired my partner, who is a year above Layla and I, and then we're in need. So basically, I kind of went into and took a job in a practice that was really ready for another head and neck surgeon very quickly. But my job search was very different in that it was not a job that was meant for a head and neck surgeon. It was not posted in that way at all. I didn't really even know that much about UMass until I met with the chair, visited, did those kind of things.
So I think these two stories are perfect to show us to our audience that there is a lot of serendipity, and that's not a bad thing. And also the idea of being proactive, and opportunities come from areas that you have no idea that's going to happen. And as Arno mentioned, that you really try to have some focus to what you want to do and where you want to end up. Okay, so we have the first question for the panel. And Kelly, you're on the supply side, and I guess the rest of the folks are on the demand side. So in terms of supply side, what would you recommend to the fellows? How could they improve their chances of landing a good job, nail the interview, be a good candidate?
Oh, those are great questions. Since we've covered a lot of sort of how to kind of get yourself out there, I think there's a couple of things. I think it's always amazing to me how very important interview preparation is. And that applies, from
what do you mean by interview preparation?
Exactly. So that starts with those first queries, a response to the job posting, the cover letter. A lot of you haven't written them before. Use your faculty. We have letters of intent. What are you, really hone down what you're interested in, the skills that you would hope to bring, the program that you might want to contribute to, do your research about the program, ask questions of faculty or of folks who have trained there. So that way, something about the program and you're not going to make, unforced errors, asking about things that either don't exist there or just not a match. So try to do your homework. Honestly, prepare for that interview. There are ample interview questions out there. Ask your faculty, because we've interviewed faculty before ourselves. Ask the chair of the department where you're interviewing. Rely on your residency program mentors too. Ask that chair for what are the questions that you ask? What are the things that you're looking for? And start to have those conversations. Ask faculty to work with you on what really great responses are going to be, because these questions are increasingly sophisticated and important. People are very intentional in the way that they are interviewing people, and you should, it will be much easier on you and you'll have a lot more fun in the interview process if you feel at ease with some of the lines of questioning that you're going to receive.
So let me ask Ben and David, do you guys actually read these emails and cover letters, or you just like, delete, I don't have time?
David's letting me come off mute first, I guess. Okay. I guess it depends on how many applicants there are for that position and where, how the search is being done. But I think, Kelly, regardless of whether the chair reads it where you're applying, it's an excellent exercise. I mean, I think about, it sounds, not to be trite, but we have missions, like our clinical mission, our educational mission, our research mission. And for me, the fourth mission is community, culture, and climate. And the other missions don't survive without that. And so I want someone who sort of thought about those things and how they're going to, contribute, not, everyone, each person can contribute in those areas in their own ways. It's not like you've got to have some huge, thick portfolio for each section, but I think just having someone, think about those things is, I like to see that someone's thinking about how. I think also being curious is really helpful. So the cases were great. Like Arvind, applied for a job. They didn't need a head and neck surgeon, but he's like, oh, what are you looking for? Like, or, I think sort of being curious to see how to match up with what the opportunities are. And then I think Arnaud also mentioned about trying to find someone where it's a good geographic as well as sort of family fit is also really, important. So I think being genuine about that is also key.
David, what about you? Do you read the cover letter?
There we go. I got it. Bobak, I can't say I expected to be pulled into this. I get on, I'm cited, and then ask for. So yes, you read the cover letter, but I think it goes way beyond the cover letter when you start determining who might join your faculty. I really liked Kelly's advice there about being at ease. And you do that by knowing more about the place you're applying to and knowing more about what you want to do. And then by having those things as defined as possible, you're gonna be more at ease. And then the people who are evaluating you will know the true you and will be excited about having you join them.
Yeah.
So I think that's good advice.
Perfect, thank you. And again, thanks for joining us. Okay, Arno, if I'm going to ask you, what are you looking for when you see that email or cover letter? What are the areas that you think as a chair will probably make a difference for you? Think, okay, this person seems interesting, or what are the other criteria that you look for your next faculty hire? I think you might be muted. You're muted.
So yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I hear somebody tell me a story that they're passionate about that stands out from just, everybody's well clinical trained, so many fellowships now where people are doing 100+ flaps and are, master clinicians and are interested in quality improvement and patient outcomes. I mean, I think these are things that we all share, and these are aspirations for every head and neck surgeon now. And so I want to hear something more than that. And I think that can be a challenge. You've been training so hard and spending so much time immersed, and sometimes you don't know exactly what you want to do. But I like Dutch's comment that the letter, even though it might not be read with great scrutiny by everybody you're applying to a position with, it's a great exercise to try to put the details of what you've done into a story and kind of tell that story about yourself in a way that then during the interviews you'll have something that's well thought out and that's convincing. And that's really, I think, what leaves the biggest impression on me. It's someone who's looking to do more than just be a clinician and a head and neck surgeon, but someone who has a passion for something. And that can be education, that can be translational research, it can be anything. I think in academic positions, what we're looking for is someone who wants to be more than just a head and neck surgeon, but wants to be a head and neck surgeon and a master educator, or director of a residency, or residency program manager, or something like that. And it can be anything. And I'm not looking for anything specific, but I just want to see that there's something there that's well developed, that's thought about, and that perhaps even they can tell me how to get there. What are the resources that they'll need? What are the extra time that they'll need, and that they have a pathway that's developed in their mind that they can work towards that goal.
Perfect. That's excellent. And that goes back to what Leila was talking about, know what you want. Okay, so Leila, what did you want?
I will tell you, David Cognetti does read emails. He actually reads more than one. So the first time when there isn't a job and he kind of files it back away, and then when you're still looking for a job and you email again, except it goes back to all the things that everyone's saying, to have a story and to have a connection to the place. And it's, let me tell you, it's a hot spot to work for Dr. Cognetti. And I think I put together a vision statement. So that goes back to what, Dr. Malloy was saying. I put together a vision statement of what I wanted my clinical and research breakdown to be, and sort of what the 3 domains of my faculty position would include, from clinical, from education, and from research, and then what potential resources the institution already had in place that could foster that, and also what I might need in addition to what was already in place. And then I think you have to do that a little bit tactfully when you're first starting out, because you kind of have no clout as a fellow to ask for a lot. However, I think it's also important to demonstrate that, if you're really serious about what you're doing, there might be some things that you need to accomplish that. And I think as long as you can demonstrate that in a thoughtful and justified way, at least it gives your potential future boss, a very concrete vision of what you envision.
Great. So thank you. Arvin, what did you want to do in your job? What were you asking?
So I was very honest with my chair from the get-go that I wanted to be a residency program director. It's always been what I'm very passionate about. My mentors were all, all of my PDs and my fellowship attending, my fellowship mentor was also the PD of University of Cincinnati's program. It's always what I wanted to do. University of Massachusetts did not have a residency program, but I just saw it as a place, basically fertile ground is kind of how I kept on describing it to myself. And what I told my chair was like, I think we have a ton of opportunity to get there, and I will get us there. And I was very honest with him about that. And I laid it out, and, you know, I got the job, and within my first couple months, I was kind of off and running. He was very nice to kind of give me the freedom to push us in that direction. And now this month is our first month of first new resident. And that was kind of what I knew I wanted. And it was really great to have the opportunity at an institution that had a lot of the clinical support that we needed to have a residency. We just needed, I think, a couple more young faculty that are really excited about it. And I was very honest and upfront at the beginning to be like, this is what I want. I will help us get there.
Okay, perfect, great. So Kelly, you have two very good fellows. So I guess everybody answered that you just, you know, I want to cure cancer and do cases. It's not going to be enough. We all agree. As an academician, we need one. So you have two good fellows coming to you, and one of them said, well, I want to be a program director. And the other one said, I hate research. I don't want to do any research. What's your advice to them to how to get a job? And the third one said, oh, I want to have a 1.2 million package of research to start. Where can I find for a job?
Right, right. Well, good luck to number 3 these days, but but all kidding aside, well, there's not a straightforward answer to any of these. I think if you're, what was number 1, the education person?
The person wants to be a program director.
A program director,
well,
yeah.
That's very big-headed of you, but then what do you say?
Right, right. Well, no, I mean, I think it's really, so how do we plan? You know, have you thought about how you're going to get there? And, you know, and I think how important is that to you to be in the next, you know, 2-3 years? Because that's a big ask, because most of us need quite a bit of experience under our belt before we really get into education leadership. So it's talking about, I don't know that it's necessarily what job it is, but when you're going to that job and you're presenting yourself to that department, what are the things that you're going to do to put yourself on that track, right? So are there opportunities to be like a medical student liaison for the department? Is there an opportunity to be the head and neck education coordinator for the residency director? You know, let's start to think creatively about what those, you know, and I really think people should think in sort of that 3 to 5 year increment of what can you do to put yourself on success to get to that job, that program director job, wherever you're going to land. I think for some of the other options, you know, folks who really want to be, you know, basic science researchers, I think we tap into our colleagues around the country who are, you know, immersed and are successfully, you know, they're the paradigm of surgeon scientist or translational surgeon scientist, and tap into them for where the jobs are. And, you know, I think for us, we're lucky we have people who do that and who are able to mentor our fellows directly. But if you're in a program that's outstanding clinical, and most of our programs were focused highly on the clinical training for that 1 or 2 year period of time. But how do we also get you those connections and that network so that way you can leverage that successfully as you're looking at a job, find out where those good jobs are, and how do you put together that package, that ask for the package, right? That, you know, the $1.2 million, et cetera, and get that package. I think for the person who wants to be, you know, predominantly clinical, how much is the, you know, the clinical hunger and the desire to really be, a master surgeon, consummate, you know, clinician? How do you weigh that against what other things you might want to do in your career? How important is teaching for you? Could you potentially look at some of these interesting new jobs at centers that aren't quite so classically academic or on their way to being academic? So it's all balancing, you know, what's your number 1 priority, and how important are these other things that you may like but don't love? And if you don't love research, then that may open up a whole other bunch of jobs for you. And then we just have to start to figure out where those are.
Okay. Leila, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think this goes back to this idea of, being really honest with yourself and, not saying reflectively yes to what we, that's how we train, you say yes to everything and you're willing to help and affable and available and all those things, right? But, this is a point in your life that you need to actually start to make decisions about your life as a whole. And I think what's also important to remember is that your first job is not necessarily your final job. And a lot of my mentors from fellowship did not start in academics. They started in private practice jobs because of those other life circumstances. And so, you have to pick, like Kelly said, your priorities, and you have to pick maybe what's the right job at that time. It doesn't always have to be the right job forever. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Okay. So Ben, new fellowship graduate come to you and says, I'm a very good basic science. You guys have a score. I've done my homework, so I would love to join you. And by the way, I want a 1.5 million packet to start the lab. What would you say?
It's too much. I mean, I think, I don't know, the discussion has been really good. And one of my takeaways listening to this is to focus on what you like to do, not necessarily what you want to be, right? Like, so, Arvind, you've managed to, you said you wanted to be a program director and you made it happen. But often, as Kelly said, oftentimes there's not a pathway. But if you like education, maybe, you know what I mean? What is it about that? And so I think having that sort of curious mind about yourself, Leila's alluding to be honest with yourself, be curious about what it is that motivates you and energizes you. Because these careers are, it's much easier if you figure out what you are enjoying, you know what I mean? And let that drive what you're doing, as opposed to trying to, and you sort of alluded to this, Leila, trying to force yourself into something I've got, I'm supposed to be doing research, so I don't really like it, so being honest in that way. I think that talking to your men, in terms of what is fair, reasonable to ask for, I think really talking with your mentors so that you're not asking for something that's outlandish, because that can be a put off. You could have a great candidate that actually could be a great, they could do great things. There ultimately might be someone you want to hire, but they come in shooting gangbusters, asking for crazy stuff. And that can sink their, you're like, oh boy, okay, I don't know. That can end up really taking away from their chances of ending up at that place. And so I think you want to be careful about being reasonable and getting guidance for about what's fair to ask for, I think is important.
I was going to ask among the expert panel here, how do you bucket some of the job opportunities? Because every job is a little bit different, right? Sometimes you need someone who's really needs to do ablation. Sometimes you're just we are so behind on flaps. We need someone who's going to crank out flaps. Perhaps there's you're trying to grow a clinical translational research program and you want someone who's going to sort of bring that aspect and has been on a T32. So can you just help maybe for the folks on the call understand, I know there's education, research, and clinical, but as chairs or leaders, depending which space or both, can you just articulate how some of those charges and needs kind of filter down into the actual job aspect? Because I think for a lot of people on the call, they're willing to do whatever because we're trying to get a job, right? July 1st next year, you're unemployed. So either you have a job or you don't. So obviously that people are going to want to fit themselves to whatever the opportunity is. But if you could clarify, most jobs look like this, but sometimes we have A, B, sometimes it's education. Sometimes it would probably help to understand what are the charges that you're sort of pressured on from above you to help articulate what it is that you ask for in your applicants. Maybe I'll start with Arnaud since, first.
The way our department works is it's historically we've all shared the clinical load relatively evenly, and so part of it's pretty straightforward for us when we're looking at a recruitment. We just need someone to do everything, and so that makes it more straightforward from a recruitment side. And then we're flexible in terms of what that person's bringing to the table. We really want a good fit with that applicant, someone who's excited to be here. As I said, someone who's going to bring something to the program, but often we don't have a very specific preordained idea what that is. And so my experience, we're relatively open, and we're excited to see kind of what those applicants will bring to the table and what they're interested in, and see how we can fit that into the department.
Great. So actually, that brings me to the first myth of fellowship, that if I don't do free flap, I'm not going to have a job. So let me ask David and also Ben, would you consider a person who's head and neck surgeon, well-trained, good person, but doesn't do free flap? Or is it like, no, 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 sorry, that ship sailed? Whoever wants to take it.
In trouble with the mute button. I
Yeah.
swear, I'm not just trying to slow play you. You know, I would absolutely consider somebody who doesn't have free flap training or doesn't have interest in free flaps being a major part of their career. I think Arnaud said it well, like you have to have something that brings you to academics. You have to have something that you're committed to, you're bringing to the table and you're bringing to the team. You don't need to do absolutely everything. So free flaps, we have plenty of people doing free flaps. It's not a requirement.
Ben, so you guys have a very strong head and neck program. You have a SPORE, congratulations. What kind of head and neck surgeon you look for in your program?
I don't know. I mean, like we've heard already, it's you know, there's some structure to it. Like usually we're looking for someone that basically is going to be, you know, a clinician with 10 to 15% of their time, 20% of their time for like other academic stuff. To hire someone who is coming in as a scientist, that is something, usually a decision that is made before you're getting to the point where you're like looking at candidates. And, you know, those jobs where your 50% of your time is research are, you know, they're few and far between, and institutions only get to hire a few people like that over a long time. And so, you know, I think those, you know, if that's really what someone wants, I think that you gotta, that's another challenge. Like it's unlikely you just see that job advertised. I don't know. I mean, I guess they do come up every once in a while, but usually that's something where, you know, it's in particular that getting hired in that phenotype, like networking and, you know, having people who your mentors know and trust, I think is key.
Great. So in the last 20 minutes, we're going to change gears a little bit and talk more about fellowship. I think these were a fantastic conversation that we all discussed. The timing, the presentation, the focus, knowing yourself and tailoring yourself to the job and be adaptable. So questions first for the two case presenters. Give us 3 or more pearls of wisdom at what helped you in fellowship and the stuff that you did and like absolutely don't do that, or your stuff that you did. In fact, you know what, that was a great thing I did and I would highly recommend you guys do it, consider it in your fellowship. So let's start with Arvind, because we've been quiet for a while. Arvind, give us 3 do's and don't do's.
Sure. Yeah. So I think I guess one of my do's is try to do everything once in fellowship. I think that the things I think about more are like the cases that I did once where I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, you're never thinking of your like 30th radial forearm, but you're thinking about your one weird nasal reconstruction case or your one like super strange parathyroid endocrine case. And I think that if you can at least get one of those, you can remember that instance and you can either call that mentor or like recall back in your brain and say, oh, what did we do about this case? Because I think that the don't to that is I was the only fellow. I didn't have a co-fellow with me. And there was a mistake early on that Alice Tang, one of my attendings, was telling me to stop doing after 3 months, was try to be everywhere. Basically just literally just running the circle of kind of like a little gerbil, being in every single room, trying to do all the things that you thought were cool. But I think you miss some critical decision points if you forget that you're there for like the thought process of what it is to be a head and neck surgeon, not just to like sew some vessels together or like be under the microscope. And I think that like my mistake early on was I was just like, oh, I just want to like get some of the reps, so to speak.
Advice.
I think that was a big mistake that I got advice on, to just be like, they were basically like, you're all over the place. Just like stay here. Like everyone else will be happy, or maybe they won't be happy, but it will be fine. And then I guess the other thing I would say is try your best in the times where you know you want to ask your attending or your fellowship attendings more questions, but it's late at night or it's an awkward time or et cetera. Like, remember that you want to ask those questions and go back later and ask them what they were thinking in that moment. Because I think as a young attending now, man, I wish I was in their brain like that hour after, you know, a flap went down, or, you know, that 2 hours after we took back a TORS bleed or something, to just get that sense of what it is to be a young attending, or to just be attending going through those cases. You know, cranial nerve gets injured, you have a positive margin. Like, what did they say to the families? What did they prepare for it? Because I don't think that the surgical skills part, every fellow on this call, and I think all of us, like, you're going to get such great training, and that volume is so much more than it was. Zender would joke like, oh, he only did like 20 flaps or whatever, and the volume's not important, but it's those weird kind of in the middle of the night, what keeps you up. And it's great to have mentors that will share that with you, will really have a true one of these conversations with you. I think that's such a huge, valuable part of fellowship. And I would keep calling them. I call my mentors too much.
Did you go to clinic routinely with your attending?
I did.
Did you find it helpful?
I did. Zender would joke because he would be the one that would bring me to clinic with him. I don't actually think it's the seeing patients in clinic, but it's the time in between patients where you're in their brain for a second, where they're like, oh, what are we planning? What do you have to do? What's worrying them about that patient? I think that's a really valuable time. And even now as attending the OR, like, sometimes in the OR, you just don't have time to think about that stuff. So I did, and I thought it was
great advice. All right, thanks. Oh, Leila. And then we're going to ask the panelists to give us some advice.
Arvin, like, really hit it. I mean, slow down and pay attention, like, really pay attention to the details. Everything that is done, you know, has somewhat of a purpose. And so I think instead of passively complaining, probably in your head, like we all did, that like, why am I not operating, meaning like holding a bovie, you know, if you can get past that and really pay attention to what's happening, like Arvin said, and why things are happening, I think you'll get a lot more out of your fellowship. And it is those cases like he's talking about. It is not another flap. Like, a flap is a flap is a flap. And there's so much emphasis on micro, and the pendulum has swung so far that we forget that a lot of the decisions before the filling the hole is making the hole, and that part can be really, really hard. And so I'd say pay attention for sure. And then the other thing is sort of, and this is potentially for the longevity of being a head and neck surgeon, learn how to compartmentalize a little bit the work and the endless emails and sort of the like nonstop interruption of your thought processes every day. And so there was some of the questions we were talking about, you know, like, how do you manage your time and what you do? So if there was one thing I'd say to do is read or listen to a book on tape. And Dr. Cagnetti loves these like book of the month and whatever. So this is the one that I would say, if you're going to read something other than a book about free flaps, I think that this should be it. You know. Oh
yeah, that's a great book.
So, you know, I wish I had read this in fellowship. I didn't get to read it until I was in attending because I was, you know, probably complaining too much about not doing enough micro or something. But that's what I would say. But I think Arvin totally hit it on the head there.
Fantastic. We have 10 minutes left. So I'm going to ask Kelly first and then the rest. So Kelly, 3 practical advice that you tell the fellows, and 3 stuff, or a few stuff that's like, please don't do that again in your fellowship forever.
Okay. 1, everything that Leila and Arvin just said, but get a notebook, write it down, draw pictures. You're not an artist. It will help you remember this in 2 or 3 years when you see that weird thing, that unique need. That'll be helpful. 2, I think Ben has emphasized a lot on the curiosity piece. Like, every day, think about that, and don't let that get in the way of the numbers and the need for, you know, there's such a tendency to focus on surgery generally up front. You need to get that muscle memory, but at the same time, don't wait to the end of the year to go to medical oncology clinic, to go to radiation oncology clinic, to hit the actual multidisciplinary clinics that are sometimes when somebody else is operating. That stuff is gold. Sit down and read through all the open clinical trials that your institution has and ask questions. Ask lots and lots of questions. And finally, if there's one thing that I wish I had thought about earlier in my career in general, it would have been ergonomics and physical health. I think we know a lot more about that, but nowhere near enough. And, you know, I was very fit in my earlier years, but it's not about running and lifting weights. That's important. It's about taking breaks in the operating room, watching how much, you know, what your positioning is with a microscope. With open surgery, you have to be very intentional around that because this is a marathon, not a sprint. And some of us, you know, it's hard to stay, your muscular skeletal system will not be what it is now, you know, 15 years from now. So bear that in mind.
Very true. Very true. Perfect advice. Okay, Arno, you guys have a very well-established fellowship for many years, very sought after. What are the few pieces of advice do you give to you would like your fellows to know in the beginning of the year? I think Arno is muted. All right, in the interest of time, let's ask Ben. Ben, you were a year ahead of me, and I remember when I started, everybody said, "Oh my God, Ben, you can never do what Ben did. He was amazing." So give us a few pieces of advice. And you guys, I know you guys have your own fellows now. So
yeah, I think the comments that have been made are like spot on. I mean, I'm just trying to think of what else to add. I think, you know, there's so much of a focus on operating, which is key, but like the stuff outside of the OR, which we've heard about, like how to talk to patients when something goes wrong, how to interact with patients in general, you know what I mean? Like how they're different, you know, seeing different styles, and then like the decision-making about the, you know, the cancer management, not just like the recon piece, but like that is, I think is, you know, it's easy to let that slip by. And then you're sitting there and you're like, oh, crud, you know, here it is. I've seen someone like this, but now I'm not exactly sure like what to do or how to balance these trade-offs. And I don't know, maybe this comes across, I think this sounds terrible. I'm hesitant to say it, but have fun. Like, you know, like hopefully, you know, being a head and neck surgeon is a great career. Like it's hard, but it's great. And so like you get, you know, so it can be so meaningful. And you got to figure out what it is about it that you particularly like. But I think it's really key to be enthusiastic and fun. I mean, I know that's hard when you're getting like beat down as a fellow. And so that's why I hesitant to say that. But I think like look for those moments where you can, you know, find some joy in what you're doing, basically.
Well, Arno, it's end of time. The guy from East Coast said have fun. So I heard that you guys in California are very strict. What would you say to your fellows? What are your practical advice?
Yeah, I think have fun is you know, absolutely critical. Couldn't agree more with Judson. I mean, you know, lean into what you do, get the most out of it. I think be there when things go wrong is something that resonates for me. I mean, as our everybody echoed today, I mean, we all get tons of reps in fellowship. You know, there's this, I think, an overemphasis on micro and just being there when things go right and getting all, you know, and just upping your case logs as much as possible. But, you know, as flap outcomes get better and better, it's actually becoming rarer and rarer to see the flap that doesn't look right, that goes bad, that needs to be taken back, or even it's the persistent fistula, or maybe it's just a family that's unhappy about an outcome. Any difficult situation where people are having trouble managing communication, outcomes, complications, whatever it is, those are the things that are going to keep you up most when you're in practice. And so those are the situations where you want to really spend the most time, ask questions, debrief afterwards, because those are really, I think, the highest yield moments of fellowship.
David, thank you, Arno.
Wow, this is great. Great advice. I'll just say, listening to this reminds me how much I love training fellows. Like it's great to train residents, but fellows are that higher level, right? You guys push us. We really are more invested, if you will, because we understand there's a high return on the investment. We're creating the people who are going into our field. So we want you to be curious. We want you to push us, and you help us all be better. Arvin, I'm glad you said at the end there, you still call your people with the questions that you wish you asked. my favorite phone calls are when the fellows call and they're looking for advice or they want to tell you something that they saw. So stay in touch and recognize that the fellowship isn't just 1 year, it goes forever. If I had to give one practical advice to you as you start your fellowship, is please recognize that this is a year to improve yourself, not a year to prove yourself. And if you get too stuck on trying to prove yourself, that could be dangerous. And if you focus more on improving yourself, asking for help, seeking feedback, admitting you don't know something, all those things are really critical for you getting the most out of the year.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna ask my co-moderator, Jeff and I, for those of you who don't know, we were co-fellows together. And obviously he was the star and I was like, this guy just running around, didn't know what he was doing. So Jeff and then Mike, more my partner in CDMS, would you like to make a comment for the fellows?
Well, first I want to thank for all the super great panelists for being here tonight. Really great comments and thoughts. For the fellows, congratulations. I just have one thing to leave you with, my advice-wise, which is go to the meetings. Go to AHNS, go to Academy. Congratulations, you are going to be a head and neck surgeon. And so you're going to join a community of like-minded, serious individuals who really take care of cancer, but frankly are really awesome people all around, many of whom are on this call. And so go to the meetings. The best way, as time goes on, the work is hard. And so the best way to refresh that tree of inspiration is to step away from it, go to the meeting, talk to your mentors, talk to your friends, talk to your residency buddies, talk to your co-fellows, talk to other other junior faculty who are in your position struggling to be successful. You will come back refreshed and you'll come back inspired and you will do great. So good luck.
Hey, Mike, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to really everybody who's a part of this great session. Yeah, for me, I can't really recapitulate everything here quickly. So I would just emphasize one point that was brought up just a moment ago. It's not about, proving yourself, but I think the educational piece is so key. You're going to go now across the table, next year as the teaching position or the lead surgeon, either way. And I think it's a great opportunity to really to develop the right dynamic with the trainees, whether it's residents, students, senior, junior, whatever it is. It was really rewarding. This is one of the first days I've had a chance to work with our fellow Deb, and she's a natural at it. Already excited to continue to work with her on that. So I think that's for us is the most rewarding thing. We want to see people when they're done go out and fly and be successful. So just to really see them over the course of the year, develop themselves into the surgeons that they want to be, and then be prepared to take the next step. So
amazing.
Really excited to partner with all of you guys on this.
Well, thank you so much. This was a fantastic session. I just want to say that I wish I had this session when I started my fellowship. Some of you fellows, and don't take this the wrong way, but you might not know how much this advice is valuable. After you've done fellowship, finished fellowship, been attending for 5-10 years, and you have gone through all of these that the expert panel mentioned here. The neck pain, the not to do what to do with the angry patient, how to get inspired. It's a hard job, but it's extremely rewarding. It's extremely meaningful. And welcome to the community. I'm going to summarize very quickly. Start early, throw a wide net, ask a lot of people, ask for help all the time, and have a focus, get to know yourself and get to know what you want out of your career, out of your life. There are plenty of people in our community that are more than willing to pick up the phone, give you advice. I'll share you a personal story with you guys. And Kelly knows this. When I started at Memorial, I basically started calling people and asking them for advice. And I cannot tell you how valuable that advice was. And I'm still doing that. I'm actually going to go through that. Now that I've been here for 9 months, I'm going to go through a second round of advice. So keep at it. You have fun. It's a year of tremendous growth. It's a year of lasting friendships. It's going to be hard. It's going to be long days, but it's worth every penny. I cannot thank you enough, the panel, and Dr. Maddie and Dr. Betty for presenting their cases. Good luck to your budding career. And to Dr. Ben Judson, Dr. Kelly Malloy, Dr. David Cognetti, and Dr. Arnold Bewley, thank you so much for being here and for all the advice. And Also, my partners in CDMS, Dr. Jeffrey Liu and Dr. Mike Moore. Have a great summer ahead. Have a great year. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.